Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profits. As always, we thank you so much for being here. Today I want to talk about auction drafts. That's something that we really haven't talked about almost at all on this channel is auction leagues. We did our draft tips video, I believe was the last video that we did, and it occurred to me, maybe we should do a video on this. Unfortunately, Rob's really busy and he got sick, and so I took this up to do this and just to also kind of make a little bit of a filler until he's ready so that we can keep content coming to you guys. This is actually our first auction league sort of video, something that maybe we should focus on more in the future. Let me know, but that's what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to do some auction draft tips and a little discussion and let you guys know that we just updated our rankings that now have auction values for all the players. So now we give a standard ranking with their auction values out of $100, which I'll talk more about in a second, and then whether or not they have increased or decreased value in PPR leagues, as well as their stats from last year, and of course you guys know, very long and in-depth, quick little article about each player, but we'll just get right into it now. First thing I want to clarify is if you're watching this video, you should probably go to our website and check out our rankings and look at it. I might even have it pulled up right now as we talk. It's not that important, but we're just going to go through some ideas. I couldn't put all these players on the screen because I'm going to go through a lot of different positions. This is pretty broad, and so I just can't put every player on the screen. That's simply going to take too long. This is going to be actually a fairly short video. One thing I wanted to say was, hey guys, leave a comment down below and just let me know. Are you guys in an auction league? I'm curious because I said, we haven't done many here, but are you guys in an auction league? Let me know. And if we get a lot of people who are like, yeah, we want more videos for this, then that's what we'll do. So that's really important that you guys do that. Personally, I'm in an auction league. It's absolutely my favorite league, hands down. It is an auction keeper / dynasty league. So it's a lot of fun, not just managing how much players are worth, but also how much are they worth this year and the future. So you get that real balance. It's a lot of fun to play, and we're thinking about switching it. It's currently in standard, maybe to PPR, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, so that's what we're going to get into. Just tips for that right now. Like I said, leave a comment down below. It's really important you let us know if we're going to do that. And of course, check out our rankings if you want to know our values. One thing that I want to clarify is that the numbers that we have put on there, the values for each player, we're still working on it. I just finished doing it for all the positions and all the players, but we just finished. I've been in dynasty leagues, in bidding leagues, as long as I've been in any other league. The very first league that I was in was an auction league, and so I think that I'm very well, have a very good understanding of this in comparison to other leagues. For me, it's not something that I'm confused about. I want to make that clear, but I've never spoken on it before, and I've never ranked every player value number by number. And so that I'm going to continue to adjust over the next few days as I get used to putting an auction value on every single player. And so keep that in mind, continue to check that, but I'm very confident the way it is now. It's just like our normal rankings where it's just going to continue to get slight adjustments here on out. Anyways, we'll get right into it and just start off with a few tips. Okay, so first, tip number one is preparation is success, and this one's really obvious. I'm just going to blow through this one really fast. Guys, you have to prepare. There's so much more that goes into your draft in an auction league than any other league. So that's tip number one. You have to work harder. Auction leagues are going to take a lot more out of you. Tip number two, and actually this maybe should have been the first one, is something to know. If you're new to fantasy, if you have yet to find fantasy success, if you're struggling, whatever it may be, you should not play in an auction league. That's because the talent gap is ginormous. Winners win more and losers lose more in auction leagues. Why is that? Because there's more to handle and there's more decisions to make. There's more preciseness that you have to be. You have to be more precise with your players and how much you're paying for them and what you're doing. And so that's important to remember, because it's not just about, did I get a good guy, yes or no, what round? Well, it's not just about rounds now, it's about exact dollar numbers, and so you have to be good at managing your money as well. So know that. One thing you can do is you can make up for that a little bit. One of the keys is calculate all day. Keep calculating. Keep track of how much money you have, how much money people have, who is left out there. There's just more to manage. But if you're good with that, if you have an understanding of money and numbers and you're diligent and you focus, you can get ahead of some people in your draft, because inevitably some guy will get drunk, some guy will get tired, someone will get bored, people will fall towards the end of the draft and just start throwing money away and making weird choices and things like that. And so that's another way that you can keep yourself up there and have a good draft, is being really focused. Another one too is that deals happen early. And maybe this is just my league, let me know if you're in a different league, but deals happen early. What happens is if you put a running back out there, say I put Le'Veon Bell out there in a $100 league, and he goes for $25. That's actually somewhat of a good deal. It's not a great deal, but what happens is Bell goes, Gurley goes, you start to take all these good running backs off the board, and people who don't have running backs, they want to be patient, they want to wait, they want to find a deal. Oftentimes people try too hard to find a deal, and all of a sudden all the good running backs are gone, and then all of a sudden people are paying a ton of money for guys who aren't quite that good. I was in a league where it was a $200 salary cap. Again, this video is based on a $100 salary cap. That's very important to remember. You'll have to adjust that if you're in a $200 league, which I am in. Anyways, all the good wideouts were gone, and last year Brandon Cooks got signed for on someone's roster for $45. Now, I'm not saying Brandon Cooks is a bad receiver, but simply last year in our league, which is running back focused, which is tight end focused, which is not, doesn't typically pay a lot for our wideouts, that was one of the most expensive wideouts out there, along with like Mike Evans and Antonio Brown and guys like that. And so that's the thing to note. The longer you wait, the more desperate you're going to get. And that's tip 3. Desperation happens late. If you're going to wait to get all your players till towards the end, you're going to have to pay a lot for them, and you're not going to be able to get all the good names. This is extremely why I said that the talent gap is huge, guys. You don't know. When you pass up Todd Gurley early in an auction draft, you don't know if that was going to be a guy you should have gone for. You don't know if you should have overpaid for him or what should happen. Like, things happen, you can't predict it. Bad players go off the board, medium players can go off the board before good players. It's really hard to manage because it's not like best player gone, best second best player, third best player. There's no order to it. It's a lot less structured, which is again why you have to focus. Like we said in our last draft tips video, don't get drunk. Don't show up after, a double or a night shift. Like, if you want to have a good draft, you got to be focused. You got to be mentally ready and mentally prepared. So absolutely remember that. And then here's another one. These actually two together. These two go together. One is extreme price differences. So you need to pay very different amounts to different players. There should be a very big difference. And the other one is $1 sleepers are key. So we'll start with the extreme price differences, and that means a lot of people think if I'm in a $100 league and I need 10 players, then each player gets $10. No. It's more like one guy gets 30, another guy gets 20, another guy gets 15. Like, that's how it works. And so that's very important to remember that. Don't try to be too even across the board. It's about getting as much talent as possible. And sometimes you have to overpay for a little bit of talent. You want to get an elite running back. Last year, Todd Gurley was on 47% of championship teams. If you want Todd Gurley, you're going to be paying a lot more than, his equal share of money. In fact, you're going to be paying in a $100 league, you're going to be paying about $35 for him, and you know what? It's worth it. It absolutely is worth it. And so how do you make up for that? Well, then you have to find talent with cheap. And that's what we talk about. These $1 sleepers are absolutely key. If you can get guys for cheap, if you can find these sleepers, you can explode. Last year, a guy like Alvin Kamara in a lot of leagues wasn't even drafted. Now, I was in a league where he was drafted. Most of my leagues are extremely competitive. We have deep benches. We have a lot of teams. I like to at least have 12 teams, if not more. I've been in 16-team leagues, and I like to have at least 16 deep bench. So yeah, like Kamara, he went last year. Hunt, he went last year. But we're in a league, it's a keeper league even. It's a bidding keeper league. So guys are getting picked up off the waiver wire or at the end of the draft for $1. Guys like Le'Veon Bell. My dad, Rob, had Le'Veon Bell for like 3 years for $1 because he was so aggressive and so smart. So there's absolutely $1 talents out there, but you have to be smart and you have to be really aggressive. And that's fantastic because if you can succeed at that, if you can do that, if you can get a player for $1 or 2 or 3 that turns out to be Le'Veon Bell, then you have a star elite running back who can do it all for you, and you can spend more money on another guy like that. This is obviously a lot harder to do, and that's why you have to study deep sleepers. That's why you have to watch your league very closely. But that is just something to remember, that extreme price differences, very expensive players, it's fine. You can overpay for a guy. If you know you can make up for that somewhere else, that's fine. Do whatever you need to do to shore up the best roster that you can. That's just a few tips right there. And then the other one that I want to talk about is targeting players. This is the final tip that I'll talk about before we get a little bit into each position. And that is that when you target players in a normal league, it's by round. These are early. This is like, okay, here's a couple of guys I'd be fine with in the first round. Here's a couple of guys I'd be fine with in the second. Here's some guys in the third and the fourth and the fifth. It doesn't work that way. In this, you have to target players based on price point, and that's where it gets very tricky. You have to have multiple options you'd be fine paying a lot for. You have to have multiple options you'd be fine paying medium for, and multiple options that you're fine getting cheap. And that's what you have to look for. Guys who you can realistically get cheap, guys who you can realistically get medium, and guys who you're willing to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to pay a lot for him. He's a safe pick. He's very secure. Sorry about that. So now we'll move on just to go by position. I want to go back to the thing where I talked about having extreme pricing differences. We'll look at each position now. All right, so as you can see here, I'm going to look at it. It's right here. I'm not looking at the screen, but we put a graph in here talking about that. Basically, put how much you should pay for each player. Our number one ranked quarterback in a $100 league is $13 you should pay. That for us is Aaron Rodgers. We like him. And then it's Russell Wilson. You should pay $11 for him. Carson Wentz, you should pay $9. There's you can see that drop off. It's absolutely fine to pay a ton for a player. Even here at the FFP, we don't like to focus on quarterbacks. We did this based on A, what we would do, but also B, what's realistic. I'm not going to go out and pay $13 for Aaron Rodgers. Now, that means I'm just not going to get him. He's probably worth $13. He's going to go for $13 in a $100 league. So that is kind of a cross between our philosophy and what's realistic. Yeah, we put all these guys to like, oh, we're only going to pay $6, right? But you're not going to get him for $6. And so we tried to show you that. And this is why we love quarterbacks. We've shown you that graph. In fact, you can go on our website on our research page and see, and this is one of the reasons I wanted you guys to go to the website. I hope you're there. You can open up a new tab, go to the research page, and scroll down to where we have the player depreciation graph of quarterbacks, so you can see who scored the most fantasy points in the second and the third and the fourth. That's much flatter than what you have to pay. If you're willing to go out there and pay $6 or $5 and get the number 12 guy, if you're willing to get the number 12 guy, you only have to pay $5 for the guy, and you're able to get a lot more value instead of paying twice as much for a guy who's only giving you 15% more value. So that's a good value pick that can allow you to put more money into other positions. I hope that that's clear. If you guys need more explanation, let me know what I'm talking about, or ask me what I'm talking about. I'll let you know in the comments down below. Put simply, this is a fairly accurate graph of what you're going to have to pay for guys at a draft. Like I said, if you can wait till some of those later quarterbacks or find a guy who's ranked late or whatever but is a sleeper, you can save some money, you can invest it in other positions. Guys, this is absolutely 100% philosophy of the FFP. Do not reach on a QB. Do not reach on a quarterback. There will always be another talent out there. So that's the quarterback position. That's pretty brief. This isn't a rankings video. I'm not going to waste tons of your guys' time talking about each individual player and argue why one guy's number one or why we have this graph, and just show you that's kind of the steepness of it. That's why you try to get guys who are late. That's why you try to get steals, because you can save a lot of money. You can save a ton of money, and then yeah, if you're in a $100 league, you can afford to say, oh, all right then, doesn't matter. I'll go out and I'll pay, $40 for Todd Gurley. Like, you can afford to get those top tier guys. So now we'll go to running backs. Okay, so now here we're looking at running backs. This is the first 30 running backs. That's more of a consistent, it's a less of a drop-off. Why is that? Well, because people know you need running backs. Now, this isn't every league. Not every league is like this, but every league that I am in, and this is our numbers on what you should pay, there's more consistent drop-off because we're trying to get those guys. Todd Gurley was hands down the #1 running back last year. He was so dominant, had a historic run in the fantasy playoff time, those weeks 13, 14, and 15, that sort of area. He was great, absolutely insane. But he wasn't ranked #1. He was actually a second-round pick, and that's why we continue to say still pay $25 for the 12th overall running back, still pay $22 for a guy who's in the top 15, because he could, and because you need a good secondary, because it's so important. This isn't a video of me. I'm not going to spend too much time convincing you to focus on running backs, but yes, this graph has us paying more, consistently paying more for running backs than some other sites would tell you. If you don't want to pay a lot for your running backs, two things I would tell you. One, you don't want our auction rankings, because that's what we do, and that's what we do. That's our philosophy. That's who we are. That's what we're going to continue to preach and to preach and to preach. So go do that. I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to tell you guys, hey, if you actually did, if you're on our rankings right now, you can look at those prices. I'd absolutely love to have you guys say, hey, why is this player this much? Like, that seems odd. That seems too high. That seems too low. Why are these players the same? Leave a comment on any position anywhere, and we'll talk about it. I'm excited. Like I said, we haven't talked about auction leagues, but I love auction leagues. They're absolutely my favorite, and I'd like to do more of them in the future. So again, keep that conversation going down in the comments below if that's what you want. All right, so now we'll go to wide receivers. All right, so now we're here on our wide receivers, and you can tell that it's a much steeper drop-off. And why is that? Because it actually has a fairly unsteep drop-off in talent and in fantasy points, if that makes sense. Here's why. Those elite few guys, those top 5 or 6 wide receivers are hands down top 5 or 6. They're very elite, they're very talented. But after that, you shouldn't pay that much for a wideout, because you can go out and pay $6, $7, $5 for a wideout who is a wide receiver too. I had Robbie Anderson in the league last year for $1, and he was a good wide receiver too. And so, yeah, this is a very sharp drop off again, because once you get out of those top couple of guys, once you leave the Antonio Brown, the Hopkins, the Evans, those sort of guys, boom, you shouldn't be paying, guys. You should not be paying. You need to be finding deals. We talk about to win a championship, you have to have a good team all around. And to have a good team all around, you got to get steals, you got to get deals, you got to make smart picks. And in this, you got to pay smart prices for the right players. And so the wide receiver position is the one that we hands down believe is the most likely that you're going to be able to find a solid deal. And so again, there's that. Try to save some money at the wideout position. Try to save some money at the quarterback position, because you have to spend a ton at running back. I love to have 2 running backs in the top 12. If I can, I'll do it. 2 running backs in the top 10, absolutely. That's going to take up half my salary, but I'm fine with that. All right, so now we'll move on. We'll go to the tight ends, and here's another reason you need to save money at quarterback and wide receiver, because you might want to spend a ton at the tight end position. All right, so now we look at tight end. This is the steepest drop off, and of course it is. You're going to pay 14 for Gronk, you can pay 13 for Kelsey if you follow our advice, and then there's a drop off to kind of like a tier 2 by themselves, where it's like Ertz and Evan Ingram, who are like right in there as again as well, and then it drops off, boom, to 6. You get like Delaney Walker, Greg Olsen. They have such low ceilings, guys. If I don't get one of those first 4, honestly, I'm just gonna go take a shot on somebody. In fact, I'm willing to pay 5 or 6 on a guy who has a lot more talent and a lot more upside, but is super risky. I'd rather pay 5 or 6 for a really risky guy like OJ Howard than I would be to pay 5 or 6 for Delaney Walker. And that's just that. At the tight end position, either you've got talent, and good for you, you just separated yourself from the majority of your fantasy league, and that's a risk worth taking, or you don't have talent, and you're just like everybody else. Like we said, it's important to have a good roster all around. Taking chances is something you absolutely have to do. Now, this goes back to the wide receivers and the quarterbacks. This is very simple, guys. If you've saved money on your wideouts, if you've saved money on your quarterbacks, it doesn't matter how much you spend on your running backs. You can afford to pay 14 for Gronk. You can afford to pay 13 for Kelsey, and that can really, really, really help shore up your roster. So that's absolutely a strategy worth doing, guys. That's all I really wanted to talk about today. Again, this is me just kind of getting my foot in the water, just starting to get used to doing videos on this. It's not that I'm, auction draft illiterate. I absolutely love auction drafts, but it takes a while to get used to this. Standard leagues are easy to talk about it. We've been talking about it for years now. So maybe give me some tips if there's more things you want to talk about. There's absolutely more tips. I didn't talk about every tip because I didn't want to talk about tips from our other video. These are just auction draft specific. All right, well, I guess I can't say that, but oh well, I guess that happened. So honestly, that's all I have for you guys today. We'll probably keep coming out with some more videos on this. It's one of those things where auction drafts are simple in that the concept is pretty easy to understand. Is it really any harder to understand than a regular draft? No, it's not. But it's far more detail oriented, and you have to really focus. Guys, I cannot stress that enough. You have to work hard. You have to pay attention. They say be the smartest guy in the room. Absolutely in one of these leagues, because you can capitalize on other people's mistakes, or you can be the guy that's making mistakes that other people are capitalizing on. So again, that's all I have to say. Sorry, this is a really short video. It's like 20 minutes long. We just wanted to get one out here, buy some time. Our next video, absolutely got to check it out. Top 30 PPR wide receivers. Couldn't be more excited. I've already started working on that. I hope you guys enjoy this. Have a great day, and God bless.